Hello everyone. Well, this is the fourth try. I'm going to see if I can get through this and actually make this video and put it out here. I just wanted to talk again really quickly regarding mental health. If you've seen my previous video, it wasn't that long, but we talked about how May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And really, I just feel like every month should be Mental Health Awareness Month, because everyone at some point all over this world is dealing with the issue of their mind, is dealing with keeping their mind healthy or bringing it back to a place of health, or an issue that's causing them to have to seek help. Whatever it is, mental health affects all of us, no matter who it is, because the ripple effect is huge. You know, there can be somebody in your family, in your church, in your community. Everybody knows somebody who is struggling or has struggled at one time or another in this area. And, you know, even beyond that, there are many of you that may struggle and have struggled with your mental health, with the health of your mind, whether it be with depression or anxiety, OCD or PTSD, and on we go, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder. There's so many to talk about, but the thing is, so many people deal with this and it's not talked about enough. And one of the places that it is not talked about enough is in the church. In the church. You say, well, that's unfair. How do you know? Well, I believe I can speak to this to some degree because I've grown up in the church. I was born and raised in the ministry, in the church. It has been, and still is, but it has been my life. It was my world. It was my backyard. It's my playground. My life. And, you know, in thinking about it, I can tell you honestly that I have heard hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of amazing messages about faith, about salvation, about healing, tons about prosperity. I have heard messages about marriage, messages about children, messages about a happy home, messages about sin, messages about hell, messages about heaven, messages about angels, messages about the past, messages about the future. And it goes on and on and on. But what I can't tell you is that I've heard hundreds and hundreds of messages regarding mental health. Just pause and let that sink in for a moment, because I haven't. Now again, I'm 47 years old. I literally cannot tell you the amount of services, church services, conferences, meetings, sessions, leadership training. I mean, just run the gamut. I mean, I have spent, I don't know. I mean, literally, I couldn't even right now calculate how many hours I have spent in church and in church services. And I'm so blessed for it. I mean, I'm amazingly blessed for it. My heritage is incredibly rich, and I'm so grateful to my family, my mom and dad. And I'm so thankful that the Lord saw fit to place me in this life, in this way, within the church, so to speak. So ministry's been everything, but I can see so clearly that there has been a lack of teaching. But not just that. You know, we can say, well, we know we need more teaching, we need more preaching, we need more of this. Well, before we can even say that, we need to even go back a step further, and we need to say that we need more understanding. We need a better understanding of what we're talking about. We need a better understanding when we say the phrase mental health, or we talk about these things. We need to back it up a bit, and we need to, I say we, as the church, you know, I speak to everybody, but I hope maybe to catch the ear of pastors, of teachers, of preachers, of leadership, of those who consider themselves maybe in a position of influence within a church, we need help. We, the community, the mental health, I don't even want to say mental health community, because what is that? That's the entire world. Because whether someone admits it or not does not necessarily mean that they do not need help regarding their mental health. They absolutely do. We all do. And if you say, no, I don't, I absolutely don't, okay, fine. I don't kind of agree, but I mean, whatever, that's your life. Maybe you absolutely don't. Maybe your mind is just solid. You never deal with depression. You never deal with anxiety. There's absolutely nothing that you need to enhance or to strengthen your mental health. Okay, that is amazing. You're amazing. But I guarantee you that you know somebody who does. And that's what I say when I say, well, I don't know if I agree with you. Maybe you maybe you're set. I mean, whatever. If you are, like, wow. But somebody in your life is not. And as pastors, and I say this because I grew up a pastor's kid, and I've then went on into pastoring with my husband for about 22 years and pastored up until just a few years ago. And so in that position, there is a massive responsibility to hear from God, to say what he wants us to say, or what he wants you to say. And there's also a massive responsibility to know the pulse of your people and to know what's needed and to be able to address and speak to that which is needed. And pastors, I can tell you the issue of mental health. I don't even want to call it the issue because it's like something's wrong if we call it the issue. It's not necessarily an issue, but I want to present it so correctly because I don't want to say the subject of mental health. It's not a subject like English or math, but this, this that we talk about things in such a way that helps form and shape them. And so when we talk about mental health, I am telling you that there is a need. People have a need for understanding, and they need to know what God says. And so right there is when some people might say, well, you know what? I talk about it all the time. It's called renewing the mind. Hello. Well, okay. I got it. Been there. Teach it. Taught it. Living it out every day. Working on it every day in my own self. But you know what? It's not just that. What I'm talking about is the need to be able to stand up in front of your congregation, just stripped down honesty, humble, approachable, real, understanding, acceptable, and just be able to say things like depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, PTSD, OCD, borderline personality disorder, eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia. Gosh, I mean, we could just go on and on and on. And all of these things fall under the umbrella of mental health. And there are people in your church that deal with these issues to one degree or another, whether it's personally or a family member or a friend or somebody that they dearly love. But if we don't ever talk about these things, if we don't ever get really honest about some of these things, if we don't talk about it, what happens is then it's left to assumption. It's left to assume that, well, maybe Christians aren't supposed to be depressed. And if they are, well, then something's wrong. They're just not a really good Christian. You're not in faith if you're depressed. That is so false. That is so not true. But these are the kind of assumptions that people form in their minds if they're not walked through the truth. You can love Jesus with all your heart and deal with depression. You can love Jesus with all your heart and life and be born into the ministry and have spoken in tongues since you don't ever remember not speaking in tongues from the time you were a tiny little girl all the way up, and something can happen and you can have and you can realize that you need help mentally. And there's nothing wrong with that. Somebody shouldn't be shamed because their mind needs help. Nobody's sitting around with a broken arm feeling ashamed. Nobody's sitting around with cracked ribs or a back thrown out or limping or whatever, and they feel like they're shamed by people, by church. It's not right. It's not right. And someone who deals with mental health, the church should feel like a safe place. It should feel like a place of understanding. Yeah. There's so much I can say about this. I pray to God that the Lord would somehow use my life, use my story to help people. Maybe even to help pastors to wake up and realize, yes, teach prosperity. Yes, absolutely. Teach about politics. Teach about this and about that. And yes, please don't ever stop teaching about faith and healing and all these things. But in all that, make room. Make room for mental health. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't be embarrassed to talk about it. So many times we are afraid, or we back away from what we are ignorant of. And if there was ever a time in life that we cannot be ignorant of this mental health, helping people, yes, with the renewing of your minds, but let's like go deeper. Let's don't just use that and blanket it all. Let's get really specific. And there's good resources. There's not many, I can tell you that. At least I'm searching. You know, I appreciate Dr. Caroline Leaf, Dr. Amen, that's his name. I'm amazed with some of the things that he's learned, and it's just, yeah. And there's just a few people really that, and there's a lot of clinical things, but in the church, we need a voice. There needs to be more people to stand up. Let's don't leave all of this to science and to the culture of the world to warp things. No. This is so important. This is so important. People's lives depend on it. Because there are people that sit in your church week after week and they're dying inside. Tithe payers, smile on their face. You think they got it all together. They amen at just the right time. They know all the cliches. Ooh, that's good. Preach it, pastor. Come on. You know, we all the church face, play the church game. We know it all. Got a fish on the back of their car, bumper sticker, right there. Right next to there, my kid's an honor student, bumper sticker. Yeah, just looks like it's all together. But don't you take for granted, because you can't see inside. But perhaps if we desire, as ministers, as pastors, if we desire to see beyond, then the Holy Spirit will give us eyes to see. And you begin to see those and know that maybe this subject is a little more necessary, desperately necessary, more now than ever before. I don't mean to upset anybody. I'm not implying that I know it all. I mean, I only know what I know. What do I know? Some people say, you don't know anything. Well, you might be right. I only know what I know, and I don't pretend to know any more than that. But I know this. You can't take away what I've lived, what I am living. You can't touch my experience. And I can speak from a place that you can't. And so maybe, if a humble heart has a set of humble ears, he'll hear my desperation and my plea when I say, please, please. Whether you're in your church, whether you're online, but I hope at some point, if you don't already talk about these subjects, if you don't learn about some of these things that people are dealing with, well, I hope you will. This comes to mind, and I just want to say it publicly. I love Vicki Berg with all my heart. She's so special to me. And she's one of the first people that I heard years ago talk about mental health, talk openly about depression. Her books are amazing. You can read some of it in her story, in her books, her story. And she talks about and shares just so transparently about where she was at. And so much of what she talked about, it's just so real because it's what so many people deal with in one form or another. And I appreciate that. I love that. It planted seeds of help in me. And so here I am now. And I just really believe that in this day and age, if we can be anything, let's be transparent. If we can be anything, let's be real. If we can be anything in life for the love of God, let's all be authentic. Because whatever it is that makes up your story, at some point, God will use it. He'll use it to help somebody else. Just like I pray that He will for me. Okay. I'm sorry this went much longer than I thought. So, Mental Health Awareness Month. May we love God authentically. And may we love people authentically. Right where they're at. Right where they're at. No matter the issue, no matter the struggle. We may not have all the answers, but we can be present. We can be right in it with them. And we can help. And we can love.